So I want to make sure everybody in the room heard that, because we've been talking more and more about how early, everyone begins the leasing process, and a year, 18 months has kind of become the norm. But you said moving in to on campus your freshman year, you were signing a lease for your senior year off campus?
We signed the house I'm living in right now as a senior. The lease was signed before my sophomore year, like at the very end of freshman year.
Can't wait to talk to your dad about that. Austin.
Social Pro from Opiniion, the #1 social media management platform in property management. Create once. Publish everywhere. Publish all the content that matters, stories, posts, reels, tweets, and more. From Facebook to Instagram and beyond, Social Pro lets you create beautiful, optimized content in seconds.
Send posts to every major social network, instantly or on a schedule, all with just one click. Easily stay on brand using built-in Canva integration, premium stock photos, and custom watermarks. One inbox. Every comment, DM, and mention all in one place. Measure what matters with clear insights into top posts, audience growth, and engagement stats across all locations. Collaborate, post, schedule, create. Social Pro elevates resident engagement with AI-powered simplicity.
Social Pro from Opiniion. Elevate your brand. Engage your residents.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Student Housing Insight Podcast. I'm your host, Wesley Deese. I'm also the CEO of Student Housing Insight. This is your first time running across Student Housing Insight. We are a platform for off-campus student housing professionals to network, share ideas, as well as data. You can find out more about our platform by visiting our website at studenthousinginsight.com. Again, that's studenthousinginsight.com. We'll make sure to put a link in the show notes as well. So if you're running or driving, don't feel like you've got to stop and write that down. In addition to this podcast, we also host the industry's monthly webinar for the U.S. called Shop Talk. Each month, we provide legislative and policy updates that are impacting our industry. That update comes from the National Multi-Housing Council. Shop Talk also provides a monthly overview of pre-leasing data on a national and a regional basis with a panel of operators who also provide their on-the-ground observations of how the leasing season's going for them. And we typically provide a topic of the month as well. So a lot of great information. And if you were involved with the operations of student housing in any kind of way, if it's that you actually work for an operator or maybe you're a supplier, vendor to the space, if you're involved with operations of student housing, specifically in the U.S., you should be registered to receive our monthly invites. You could register to receive those as well as review prior Shop Talk webinars by going to shoptalk.info. Again, that's shoptalk.info, and we'll also provide that link in the show notes as well. Well, guys, today's episode is a little different, and honestly, it's probably one of the most important conversations that I think we've had all year. This episode was recorded live at LeaseCon TurnCon, where we brought together a panel of 5 different students who are currently living off campus to really just kind of talk openly about their housing experiences, their journey in trying to find off-campus housing, and why they made that choice and what their life has been like as a resident. There's really no scripts. There's no filters, just, really kind of honest feedback from the people that we ultimately serve, right? Our customers. And here's a couple things of, I think, what you're going to hear directly from them in this episode. I actually wrote out 5 here. I'll just read them out to you. First, I think how early students are actually starting their housing search. And we all knew that it's becoming earlier and earlier. A lot of students are, especially since the pandemic, we're starting to look for housing 10, 12, 18 months out. We've actually got a student in this panel who started a search for their senior year housing at the end of their freshman year. And I don't mean they just started the search. I mean, they actually had to sign a contract. So that's going to be very interesting to hear. And I think this second thing that you're probably going to take away is why word of mouth and social media matter more than traditional marketing. I know that's not a huge surprise, but we'll get into the details of what their what their perspective has been from a social media standpoint. Third, what are the amenities that really influence their decision for choosing housing, and which ones don't matter nearly as much as we think? The fourth is really kind of what frustrates them most specifically after move in, especially when it comes to communication and maintenance. And then the fifth thing that you're going to hear, and I think is a great takeaway, is how students want to be treated once they become residents and not prospects. If you work in student housing, this episode is absolutely going to change the way you think about leasing, or at least enhance kind of the perspective from the students that maybe you've never thought about, both from leasing, renewals, and just the overall resident experience. But before we jump in, I do want to thank our sponsor, Opiniion, and specifically, I want to point out their new Social Pro platform. Social Pro helps property teams and portfolio leaders streamline their social media, create consistent content, and better communicate everything your community offers without adding more work to already busy on-site teams. If you're trying to better connect with residents and prospects through social media, this is a tool worth checking out. You can learn more at opiniion.com. And that's Opinion with 3 I's. It's OPINIION.com/SHI. And with that being said, let's get into this interview with the 5 college students that we met at LeaseCon TurnCon.
Thank you, Randy. And for everybody, this is now the 7th year of LeaseCon TurnCon, 4th year in Charlotte, and it's been a blast as always. So if you guys have enjoyed the conference, please let Randy and Rich know by another round of applause. Well, guys, before we get started with the student panel, I wanted to recognize some folks in the room. The past few years, we've done a scholarship, but it did not include travel. And so this year we had I went to some sponsors and said, hey, can you help me actually work with these scholarship winners, the LeaseCon TurnCon, and let's get their travel, their hotel, and everything included in this. And so I want to thank Smarter Furnishings and Leap and Casa Perks for doing that. And if our scholarship winners could stand up. These guys were picked by our Student Housing Insight ambassadors. If you don't know anything about our ambassador program, it's a 2-year cohort that we bring 6 people in at the beginning of each year. So if that's something you're interested in doing, see me after the panel and I can get you some more information on that. But they serve first year doing some content for us. In fact, if there's any of our SHI ambassadors, current or past, please stand up. These guys have been great. Randy mentioned that this panel was my brainchild. It's not my brainchild. It was from our ambassadors. So thank you so much for the work that you guys do with me throughout the year. All right. Well, let's jump into it. Well, last year we did this. We had some great folks that were from the region. It is really tough getting students the second week of December to show up at a panel in Charlotte because they're all in exams. And but I think we've put a really great cast together. And I want to first have you guys introduce yourselves, know what year in school you are, and yeah, let's just leave it at that. I'll come back to the other questions. So Lydia, we'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lydia Melton. I'm in my first year of grad school. So fun. And yeah, I go to UNC Charlotte.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica Callie. I'm a senior at the University of South Carolina.
Hi, I'm Dana. I am a junior at UNC Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Kara Kelly. I'm a senior at Lehigh in Pennsylvania.
I'm Austin Blackwell, and I'm a junior at University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
And just a couple of other background things. One, I want to thank the few folks in the crowd that helped put this group together. One being Rich Kelly, because I don't know if you call Kara's last name is also Kelly. So we've got a parent in the crowd. We were able to do that last year with Joanne Arell. Joanne is here again, and she helped get Lydia and then Peter with college pads. Helped me get Austin, and then Dana came from a reference from Heather Jo at Black Sheep. So thank you guys for helping me with that. And of course, Erica got pulled into this because she's friends with Kara. So. Well, hey, listen, I want to first start with just talking about your journey and going from all of you guys that lived on campus initially and wanted or had to move off campus. And so really wanted to just capture that journey that you guys went through of how you started that search. What was it that led you? Was it roommates pulling you off of on campus, or was it more of it was just that time you aged out and you had to move along? So obviously you're in grad school, a little bit of a different situation now living wise, but can you go back to that kind of first experience of moving off campus at UNCC?
Yeah, definitely. So I also did my undergrad at UNC Charlotte, too, for a little bit of backstory. But I did live on campus my freshman year in the dorms, and it was fine. I lived with 4 girls in one bathroom. So, wasn't the best scenario. And just basically me and another one of my roommates at the time, we were like, we're not doing this again next year because, we don't want to do this again. So we started looking for apartments around, I want to say pretty early, maybe October of my freshman year for the following year. And she basically did all the hard work because she's a little bit more, cares more about where she was living. I was just ready to get out of the dorms. So she kind of took the reins on that and did a bunch of research. And yeah, we ended up signing a lease, maybe in January to start moving in. We would be moving in August.
So a good 10 months out.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And did that search, that include anything, from a technology standpoint? Was it just hitting Google? Was it, and doing a search that way? Or was it more of, hey, I've already got friends living here?
For us, it was more word of mouthiness, kind of, especially as a woman. Safety also mattered a lot for me and my friend at the time. So we were hearing word of mouth from other women on campus as well of where not to go, especially. Yeah. There was a lot of where not to go more than where to go. And then obviously reviews online were a big thing too that we looked into. So I'd say those were the main things.
So Erica, in Columbia, what was your experience with moving off campus or to off campus?
Similarly, I was in a dorm my freshman year, but it's kind of known at the University of South Carolina, you're off campus as soon as your freshman year is over. It's not really encouraged for older kids to live on campus just because there's simply just not enough room on campus. So you know that you're moving off campus pretty much as soon as you get there. And then for us, at least at the time that I was there, this was before there's been a lot of new development within real estate and student real estate, specifically in Columbia. But at the time, it was kind of known that there was one spot that the sophomore girls kind of all congregated to. So we had,
and I know that manager is in the building, so if you want to mention it to him, go ahead.
Yes, it was the hub in Columbia. So it was kind of known that that's where the sophomore girls moved. after their freshman year. So I had only really heard of it through word of mouth. We never toured. We never did anything. We'd visited before because we had older girls that we knew who lived there. So we had been in the building, but never had an official tour, never toured the unit that we were signing. So we kind of started really looking into it in September, and we had signed by October because it's kind of known to go pretty quick.
Gotcha. All right, and Dana she's on both sides of this. Currently with Greystar, not at a student property, but she has worked at a student property. So I'm looking forward to hearing how your search began.
Yeah, my search began kind of hearing word of mouth about housing not being guaranteed after your freshman year. So from that point, it was kind of already in my head. However, I remember vividly seeing the property I did end up going with, marketing on campus. So they would come out, interact with students, give out merchandise, and I really felt like it was tailored to the student experience. From that point, I went in and I toured.
And one thing I want to mention, or just if you guys had an experience with student housing fairs and how much that may have played into it. So I don't know if you guys had any experience with that. All right, let's go down to...
Yeah, so my search started freshman year, I would say in the spring semester. Our school has a heavy Greek life population, so you join Greek life January of your freshman year, and then kind of from then you're pressured into getting your senior year house. So that started right away, and that lease was signed at the end of my freshman year for my senior year house. Like, that's what we go right to. It's kind of like a competitive race on who can get there. But all of that is really word of mouth and passed down through people you know, and mainly people in your sorority. A lot of the houses have been lived in by girls and boys in their respective organizations like for years. So that's kind of how that goes. And sophomore year, we live on campus in our sorority and fraternity houses. So that was a little bit different. And junior year, we also live off campus, but I went abroad, so just for my first semester. And honestly, that's like a super last minute thing because it's really hard to find 6-month leases. So that's like put on the back burner. But freshman year, like that race to senior housing happens, which is crazy. And my parents probably didn't believe me. So that was crazy, but that's kind of how it started for me.
So I want to make sure everybody in the room heard that, because we've been talking more and more about how early, everyone begins the leasing process. And a year, 18 months has kind of become the norm. But you said moving in to on campus your freshman year, you were signing a lease for your senior year off campus?
We signed, the house I'm living in right now as a senior, the lease was signed before my sophomore year, like at the very end of freshman year.
Can't wait to talk to your dad about that. Austin.
Yeah, so for me, I felt like it was just right to get off campus after my freshman year. I already had all 4 of my roommates decided in like the first semester of my freshman year. And I just kind of left it to them. I didn't really care as long as I got my own bedroom, my own bathroom, and just like a nice living area. And they ended up going between 2 different places. And honestly, I didn't have much to say, but yeah.
And as far as, I want to come back to that, the whole thing from a technology standpoint, was there anything from a technology standpoint that you were using to try to help make that decision? Or was it really just where friends were wanting you to go to?
Yeah, so not really technology. I had friends a year older than me that really liked the place I'm living at now. And that's kind of ultimately how I made the decision. Yeah, and I went there a couple times, and it was just like, it was convenient, it was cheap, and it was right next to campus, so yeah.
Great. Well, I know the audience, a lot of the folks in here spend a lot of money on helping you guys with that search. So I know they're going to have Q&A afterwards. So I'm going to park that there, and I want to go ahead and start moving towards move-in day and kind of what that process was like. We could talk about the lead up of how things were communicated, and then, of course, the move-in day, how that experience was, because these operators spend a lot of time throughout the entire year planning that out. And I'm just curious as to, from your perspective, how well was that executed? And then the follow-up, in the week after, because not everything's going to be perfect. And, were those things addressed kind of right away? Erica?
I've had a lot of experience with moving in and out. I've moved every single year since I was a freshman, so definitely well-versed in it. My sophomore year, it was very well organized because it was a very large building, so they kind of had to have it organized, especially because there's only one point of street access and it's on a main road. So
Yeah.
it was very much like time slots. You go in at your time slot, you get your key, they give you carts, and you like kind of start bringing in your stuff through those carts. So that was relatively easy, nothing to complain about. And then there was nothing really to do in the week following. It was just settling in. My junior year, when I moved in, because I was going abroad, like Kara mentioned, it's really, really hard to find short-term leasing for going abroad. And I think that was my biggest struggle with my entire college housing experience so far. So we unfortunately had to find a place that wasn't the nicest because there was no short-term leasing. So we had to sacrifice safety and luxury for something that was a little bit cheaper because my parents had to pay double rent. So when I was abroad, they had to pay rent in Colombia and rent when I was in Austria. So fun, yes, for me, not for them. So that move-in process was a little bit more difficult.
Just telling you, karma is a real thing. So
yes, it is. So that move-in process wasn't as seamless. We had like bugs in the carpet when we moved in. Our heat didn't work, and Colombia's pretty hot when you move in August.
Yeah.
So that whole week following move-in was maintenance in and out consistently. So two very different and polarizing experiences for sure.
Dana?
All right. Well, I did experience move-in from the operating side. At that point, I was already working in student housing. I actually got the job 6 months before moving and 6 months after signing my lease. At that point, I had a pretty smooth move-in, not the same for my friends. I remember us giving the students a big packet of information and steps to follow, and they weren't listening to that. They weren't reading it. They skimmed through it. They missed a lot of things. For example, move-in inspections. Things like that, really important things that they've never done before because it was their first time renting. And I think that move-in for my friends could have been easier if things were laid out a little bit more tailored to students. Students are skimming. They're not reading pages worth of move-in instructions. So that was a big thing.
Here, I mean, 2 years to plan for a move-in. I hope that went pretty smooth.
I mean, honestly, we didn't have much information. It's a little bit different than everyone. I've not lived in an apartment as a part of student housing. It's only been houses. It's just kind of the way it goes, I feel like, for my group of people at school. But honestly, after we signed freshman year, there was not a lot of information and communication. When I was going to drive back to school this August, I kind of just like, our lease started, I think, July 1st, and it was just like, you can go whenever you want. There really wasn't anything more to it. Maintenance-wise, we definitely had a lot of issues. Like washing and drying wasn't working, dishwasher broke within the first few days, and that definitely took a few weeks to fix, which was understandable as every student's moving in kind of within the same week, and I think a lot of the houses had the same issues, but that was definitely a little bit of a hurdle to get through in the first few weeks.
Austin, how was moving?
Fortunately, I've only had to move in once, which was beginning of my sophomore year, and because I've been here for 2 years now. So, but it was smooth. I was surprised because there was only a few time slots that they had, and mine was the earliest one, and it was quick, it was easy, and there was not as many people I thought was going to be there. So, yeah, that's kind of hard to remember now moving in, but.
I want to come back to you, but I want to go to Erica really quick, and just because you talked about moving every year, that time period between, because did anything, especially in that second community that you moved into, was there in between that we call it turn, between that gap of when everybody's moving out, moving in, did you have that, was that overlapping? Did you end up having to stay in a hotel for a few nights? What was that like for you?
So move in and move out in Columbia is always at the end of the year. So
Yep.
When I moved out in May, I didn't move back in until August.
Gotcha.
So you have to get like a storage unit in between because I wasn't lugging all my stuff all the way back up to New York. So I had to put everything in a storage unit solo with a U-Haul, just me and a U-Haul moving everything in, which was not most convenient for myself personally. But yeah, there was no overlapping with the leases, so I could move just one into another, so everything would be ready to go when I came back in August. It was a move out, put everything in storage, and then when I got back, take everything out of storage and bring it to the new place.
Now, you're in grown-up housing now. That's what we call it after they leave student housing, grown-up housing. And so But yeah, I mean, that compared with moving into your first purpose-built student housing property, was it better or worse? What?
So for me, the student housing place that I moved into, it was their second year of like just, I guess,
Managing or-
being
yeah.
anything.
Okay.
So they didn't really know a lot. And my dad is a real estate agent, so he was like trying to ask them like, we got like a packet, and he was reading it because obviously I don't know how to read. Like my dad's there, so I forget everything. And he was even confused by the wording of the packet. And then there was also like gates that weren't open on move-in day to make it like easier. So you would have to like lug everything from like the street past the gate. It was just like, wasn't ideal at the
Kind
time.
of chaos, yeah.
Yeah, and then moving out of student living into my condo that I live at now was better, I guess. I mean, I'm on the 3rd floor of my condo and there's no elevator, so like that was kind of not fun. But it was kind of easier not having to deal with anyone, like when it comes to management, because we just bought the condo, so it's kind of easier. But I don't know.
So you did say something on the prelim call about your real estate agent father.
Yeah.
Who was having he was trying to find the grown up in the room. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So my dad is a buyer. He's not like a renter at all. So when I was moving into a place to rent, he didn't really know how to go about that. And we were doing it so early. My dad was like, you can just like find a place within like 2 months and then sign a lease. And I was like, no, it's different though. That's what everyone's been telling me, is it's different. So we would call, because co-signing, my dad had some questions about whatever. So we would call where I was living at. And it was like a bunch of students working there, which like is fine. But my dad was like asking a bunch of real estate questions. Real estate questions that like I would have no idea about, let alone like the person who's probably working there, who's also just like a student just trying to have a job. So he kept asking like, where's your manager? And then they would be like, I don't really know. So it was like a lot of like going back and forth. And then when we finally got to like upper management, because my dad was so annoying about getting to upper management, it was a lot easier for him to talk to a grown-up like in upper management. And then it helped his brain to be able to process what everything was.
Well, I can guarantee your manager was likely on the phone with their regional manager or their ownership group or asset manager, or because that happens a lot. And I think it's really important that we hear that.
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to move to the next part of the journey, which has been your living experience and just what that's been like. And obviously that's communicating with management. It's interacting with resident portals. It's dealing with things that may come up between you and your roommates. Who wants to kind of take the first stab at what that experience has been like?
Yeah, I can go ahead. For me, just like I said, from seeing both sides of it, I think I've had a great experience. I'm very understanding when it does come to management. I feel like if it could be better, it would be little things such as maintenance, having better communication, just keeping us up to date, especially because, for example, my washer was down. I don't know anything about washing machines. For them to just keep me updated and let me know what was going on as it was happening would have been helpful instead of not hearing anything for 2 weeks. So things like that. But otherwise, it's been pretty great.
I can go, yeah. My living experience has also been pretty good. You can't really complain too much, obviously. Like, it's a pretty common thing you probably hear, like maintenance, which I'm sure it's like harder thing to tackle than we all think it is. But definitely like responsiveness, at least, I think is a problem. Like, we use an app called Rent Room. It's for pay rent, maintenance requests, all of that. Like, our lease is on there. And we'll put in a request and like you don't hear anything. You have to call them a million times. The operations manager, they just deny you because they're ignoring you because they can. Because it's kind of one company that owns a lot of the houses that my friends and I live in. So that's a little rough, I would say. But once you do get in touch with them, they come and they fix it. It's just a little bit of a problem getting in touch with them. But otherwise, our homes are really nice. We're very lucky. The house I live in now was renovated last year. So no complaints really on that end.
Nice.
Yeah.
Always great to move into something that's been renovated. Yeah. Austin?
For me, my living experience has been pretty good. The only really issue I had was when I first moved in, the internet was like always down. I wasn't able to do my work, my schoolwork there. I would always have to go to the library or on campus. So it finally got resolved about a month or a month and a half afterwards. But I don't know if my place had any like contact with the internet company, but I would have to send emails to the internet company and my place where I was living at. And it never really worked out until a month after. Other than that, everything's been fine. Maintenance requests are good. Amenities are great. I love, especially the sauna. I like doing that. But other than that, yeah, everything's been solid.
Yeah, and great point on amenities. I'd love to kind of dive into that a little bit more too with you guys on this question as well. So you want to take it?
I honestly miss management. Like, my sink would be clogged, and I could just, like...
Because now you're having to call the actual...
Yeah, now I have to do it. I got, like, one of those snake things. Oh, my gosh, so scary. But I honestly, like, I miss, like, when a light bulb was out, I could just, like, text somebody, and it would be fixed within, like, a day. Oh, my gosh, that was so nice. And, like, having a pool, too, to go to... Like, I'm just reminiscing now. But, yeah, so I loved... When I was living where I was living, I loved my management. And also, our doors would lock automatically behind us. And I'm one of the people that always leaves. Like, I'll be on the way to my car, and I don't have my keys with me. So I would always lock myself out. And sometimes my roommates weren't there to, like, unlock the door. So I would call management, and they would be there within, like, I don't know, 10 minutes on, like, a little golf cart. Like, they would let me back in. So I really appreciated that. But yeah, honestly, I really do miss not having to do everything myself.
Yeah, in general, I had very positive experiences, like with the actual living portions of my time. I would say it's harder when you're living in a bigger complex when it comes to maintenance requests, just because there's so many students. So things can get a little bit backed up, and there could be some miscommunication there. Like, I remember when we moved in, we thought that trash pickup meant like you leave your trash bag outside of your door and somebody picks that up, because we didn't really know what that meant. And we didn't know until maintenance was banging on our door telling us to stop leaving our trash in the hallway that that's not what that meant. So just like little miscommunications here and there. I'd say at the place that I lived in for that 6-month period before I went abroad, it started off on a rough patch. And I think their portal was not very clear. So maintenance, you had to like make calls for maintenance. But then when you call the main number, then it patches you through to that robot who says, why are you calling? And then if you say you're calling for maintenance, then they'll never patch you in. So we would end up having to lie on the phone every time saying like, oh, like I'm a new resident, or, you know, I'm looking to move in order to get in contact with the office to get maintenance to get to the apartment. So that I'd say was a little bit more frustrating. But now my current property, I'm living in a house this year. They use a website called Appfolio, which has everything in it, which I really appreciate. And when it comes to maintenance, you can pick like time slots, and then they'll just come and they'll let themselves in if you say that they can. So that's a lot more convenient. And there's a lot of communication through that platform, which I've noticed.
Gotcha. Rich, we need to build an Appfolio, so you know. Dana, I want to kind of come back to you on this a little bit, because I don't think we really talked about amenities, and you're obviously hearing from folks about, or students about amenities. What's your, are students really focused on the swimming pools and I mean,
Yeah.
we know that Lydia is, we know she misses it, but there's a big push in the industry for, more study rooms and things like that.
I feel like amenities played a big part in my decision. Where I ended up at had a beautiful swimming pool. I wanted to host. I knew that I would have college things all the time, have friends over. So it was a good look. 24-hour gym. I had such a crazy schedule with work and school to where 24-hour gym was mandatory because I could go in the mornings or after work. So just things like that played a huge role. I feel like I definitely didn't even look at the ones that amenities couldn't even compare. In UNC Charlotte's bubble, kind of, there's like a big three, I would say, as far as the student housing, and I would say those big three are loaded with amenities.
And I just realized we've got some folks from Hub Columbia here that, and someone in there that will remain nameless, Jordan Vardabedian, is in the room, and we've had this conversation about golf simulators. Did Hub Columbia have golf simulator?
I believe we did in the gym.
And you never used it?
And I never used it. I don't know if it necessarily worked when I was there, but this was also 2 years ago. I know that there was a lot of holes in the walls near where it was, which is how I knew where it was. But that was kind of it. But yeah, the Hub definitely had a lot of amenities. But like I said, that's kind of where all the sophomore girls lived at the time. So when it was 80 degrees on a Friday, that pool was jam-packed. And that gym was always jam-packed. And it was so great to have 24-hour access to the gym because I haven't had that since, and I really miss it now. So yeah, definitely the amenities are a huge attractor, I think, when it comes to properties like that, especially now that there's building up so many in the same area. I think that's what makes these properties stand out the most.
Yeah. I think for Jordan, it's more if she wants, when she has to go to the property, she wants to make sure she's able to, take out her frustrations or something. And anyway. All right. Renewing or moving. Now, obviously, we've got 3 seniors here, so I know what you're doing, but would like to know, based on the experience, would you renew or move? Lydia, let's talk with you about that first property that I'm trying not to blurt out. Did you renew after the first year?
No, I did not, but it wasn't for them lack of trying. I would get emails. Maybe every single day, I want to say. I have no idea. It was very constant. And my dad was also getting those emails because he was a co-signer. So he was getting very frustrated with me. But I never renewed just because I ended up going the condo route after I stayed there for a year because, well, my dad bought the condo, so.
There's the connection.
Right, gotcha. The realtor. Gotcha. So, yeah, he was like, I'm done paying rent, which, fair, I guess. But, I didn't have a pool anymore. So, yeah, renewing. They were very, very consistent with the emailing of, hey, by the way, you should renew now or else your spot's going to get taken. I was like, ooh.
All right, Erica, we know you're not going to renew because you move every year. So we'll just go on to Dana unless if you've got.
I will say I would have renewed that first year if I wasn't going abroad, but the only option was to find a sublease, which is just so unreliable, especially when everybody's going abroad in the same semester. There's nobody coming back to sublease. So I would have renewed, but it just wasn't an option when it came to 6-month leases or anything like that. So it just wasn't doable. But otherwise I would have, but now moving, so.
I definitely considered renewing. We had a fantastic price drop for renewals, and that kind of made me interested, but I am with Greystar now, so I get 20% off rent, so I'm moving to a Greystar property, but otherwise I would have loved to renew.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily apply to me either because freshman and sophomore year we live on campus, and then junior year it's, like I said, with going abroad, you're not really finding something permanent, and that senior year comes so early, but yeah. Can't really
Now, are you graduating in May or?
Yeah, graduating this
So
May.
does the lease end in May or are you spending some time in Pennsylvania before?
I think it's a 12-month lease. I think it's June to June.
Gotcha.
So you kind of lose, some people take it up on them and live there in the summer prior, get an internship or something there, but I've yet to do that. So you just kind of lose out on those months.
Yeah. There are some advantages to being a scattered site operator. Austin.
So I've already renewed once.
I will tell you, your landlord is in the room, so I'm sure he is paying close attention.
Yeah, well, during...
This might be the perfect time to negotiate. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, well, last year around this time, I would get probably 3 or 4 calls a day, or not a day, sorry, a week, with voicemails about renewing, my spot's gonna get taken. And I ended up waiting a long time, price ended up dropping, and yeah,
The price dropped?
Yeah, a lot. But yeah, for next year, I don't know if I'm going to be at this school, so I don't know if I'm going to renew yet. But if I stay, I most likely will renew.
Great, great. All right, last question. And Randy, are we doing okay on time? All right. So last questions for you before we go to Q&A. You've got a room full of operators and owners in this room that are developing and managing purpose-built off-campus housing and also non-purpose-built student housing. What suggestions do you want to make sure that they hear and things that they take away that would have made the experience better, things they need to double down on? Who wants to take the first stab at that?
I can start, I guess. I think when it comes to all these amenities, it's so amazing when you read on the website that's what all these places have to offer. But I think it's important to kind of make sure that those amenities are working and up to date by the time the students who signed when it was working, that they're still working by the time we move in. I think just, to make it well-rounded and to make all those amenities that attracted the students in the first place actually worth it. And I also think when it comes to move out, I think this also goes back to what you were saying in the beginning, like all that fine print and that paperwork when you're moving in, especially about the inspections and, sending in pictures of any damages or things like that. I don't know if it was necessarily clear what the consequences would be if you didn't do those inspections. And I ended up having to go on a multiple month fight about damages that were there before I'd moved in that I didn't properly report, and then we were being charged with. So I think that clear communication in the beginning can help both management and the student, move out and have it be done quicker rather than being dragged out, for sure.
Yeah, and kind of to piggyback off of Erica, when things like that do happen, just really communicating with the student. A lot of times, most people are first-time renters. They are gonna act angry, act mad, but they're just scared. They don't know what's going on. And I just feel like having a good relationship and building that is gonna go such a long way. Essentially, the student is the brand. They are the ones talking to other students and putting out that property out there. So just really big on considering their feelings and trying to educate them as well in the process.
Yeah, I can't exactly touch on the amenities and all that kind of thing, but I personally, for us, up at Lehigh, I was telling my dad recently that they're trying to raise the rent prices an insane amount. And I've been here since yesterday, so I've been kind of listening to the affordability conversations. And I think it's really important. I guess I'm probably not qualified to suggest anything, but if I were to, just to really keep that in mind, I have the culture at our school to follow each other's paths has been really strong, and it's now breaking because the rent, people are trying to charge $1,700 a month per person to live in these houses that it's really not worth that. So this culture of staying in these houses and building that community within your sorority, it's ending. I know girls now who are moving and gonna go live in apartments, which honestly has really never been done your senior year. So I guess either that could be a good thing for you or bad, but just the affordability part, just no one's really able to pay that much. So just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, so only suggestion I really have is maybe I have a late night doing work or something, but the clubhouse and the gym, I'm not sure what time they really close, but I don't think it's any time after 10 p.m. And maybe I want to go and study in the lounge or something late at night or the gym. It closes pretty early and I don't have access to that, so that's really my only issue.
Yeah, for me, I loved when my apartment complex place would do free food because I'm a broke college student. Of course I'm gonna go stop by, get a free energy drink and then eat all of the free food that you're offering. They also did at another apartment complex that I wasn't living at, they did mimosa day. Oh my gosh, I just turned 21. Of course I'm gonna go over and get a free mimosa. So that was really fun. And then always just having coffee was so nice. They had one of those coffee machine things that you just press. And then printing they had too, which was very helpful, especially I was living there when I was starting to really get into planning for grad school. So I was doing a bunch of research on campus and stuff like that. So being able to print just by walking over to my, what's the place called?
The clubhouse?
Yeah, to my clubhouse to print was really helpful. But yeah, so just keeping that stuff, free food. If you're working with college students, free food always. Always.
That's a great note to now turn it over for the Q&A. And we've got a microphone. Just FYI, full transparency, this is also being recorded for the Student Housing Insight podcast. So if you do ask a question, you will be on the podcast. And we want to make sure that you get the microphone before you start asking your questions so that we can make sure we've got that recorded. So Lisa.
Hey, y'all, you're precious angels, first of all. So cute. So and I'm not sure, obviously, the core properties and stuff. For those of you that have lived in furnished units, what are some of the things that you've really liked and some of the things that you don't really like as it relates to the furniture? And by the way, I sell furniture. So there you go.
Go for it.
I think I can definitely touch on that. 2 of the apartments that I lived in were both fully furnished. I loved it, and that was really a game changer for my parents as well. I didn't have to buy furniture until I moved into my house this year, which honestly is inconvenient because I'm moving right out at the end of the year. So having those furnished apartments really made a huge difference, especially when it came to picking apartments. So I loved just in general that it was furnished. The one note I had was comfortability. I loved having a leather couch, right? Because nobody wants to move into an apartment that somebody else has been living in with like a cottony, cushiony couch, and you like smells weird. There might be like some awkward stains, like you never know. So I loved the leather couch, but it can be hard to make them comfortable. So one of the apartments I lived in was not very comfortable, that couch, which really discouraged like the living room area in general. And you know, that's where us girls congregate. That's where we gossip in the mornings after a night out. Like that was a huge part of like our environment living there. So I think comfortability, especially with the living room furniture, is a huge plus.
All right.
I would say quality. I know that the couch that I currently have in my student apartment is all scratched up, and it doesn't look the best. I might be charged for it at the end, but I didn't do it. It's just, it tore down over time. The quality isn't the best, so I would recommend good quality, especially, it'll make turn easier as well, you know, not having to replace furniture as much.
So, mine is also fully furnished as well. It comes with a TV as well, which is very nice. I like that a lot. And a nice big couch. The only thing I recommend maybe is outdoor seating. The outdoor balcony seats are not very comfortable. They're like metal. So I wish it was like maybe even a wooden chair with a cushion or something, because I like to hang out there a lot, especially when it's warmer.
Any thoughts on furniture?
Me?
Yeah.
When I was living where I was living, it was very like white and like not dark. Well, those can't really be one and the same. But so I liked how it would brighten up the room, because I know some apartment complexes do have dark wood stuff, and I think that would make me sad, honestly. And there was a lot of space under the bed, so I could just shove a bunch of under there and forget about it until I moved out. So that was nice. What am I gonna do for a living? Oh, I'm in school to be an addictions counselor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Randy, do we have another question?
Yes, there's another one.
Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. This is awesome. You guys don't mention anything about like social media or ChatGPT or Discord boards kind of playing a role in your decisions. Do they? And you just haven't really mentioned it, or?
Yeah, oh, sorry.
No, you got it.
Okay, yeah, social media played a big role. Honestly, when I'm looking at properties, I'm looking at their social media, what looks nice. The Reels did it for me, seeing all the amenities, seeing the resident events and everything in real time on their social media. So yeah, it does play a big role, especially when comparing as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% gonna stalk your Instagram. Obviously, if I'm gonna live there, I want it to look cute.
Right.
So it's very much like, if I don't get the appeal quickly, I don't wanna live there. And maybe that's vain. Like, if I don't see like blue crystal water of the pool, the second I touch on your Instagram page, I'm never gonna sign.
That's so real.
Yeah, like that's just honest.
Great
I
question.
think that social media is important. There's now that I'm graduating, obviously I'm not like looking for anything, but there's a pretty new apartment complex that came to our campus. And like I said, like it's rare, I guess, but it's a little bit more uncommon to live in apartments. But they DM me like all the time. But honestly, it like gets your attention. And I know people that are living there partially because of that. And it's one of the only properties that does kind of a lot of social media for us. So I think like it's a little bit of a change. And I think the DMing can be like maybe a little bit annoying at times, but it gets that recognition in your brain. And the more you see it, like the more you're thinking about it. So I definitely think the social media plays a big role. And also just like they're doing a lot of, I've also been hearing a lot of this today, and I think it really resonates, like that personal touch, like the day in the life, like this, like who's working there. Like we don't necessarily like as students we're not thinking as much about like the corporate office, like and all that back stuff, but like maybe the day in life of someone who's actually on site, like working there, or like going through and showing all the amenities. Like I think that's really important. And like going into a unit, like that personal touch is really important when it comes to the social media stuff.
I think for the AI conversation, I know that's what everybody's interested in developing because that can help you to stand out. I know for me, I never used AI when it came to researching apartments. I wanted to see official websites. So when I was researching, especially for before I went abroad, I'm like 6-month lease, Columbia, South Carolina, and I was going on every website. And I think having an easily accessible and easy to view and navigate website made more of a difference to me than any ChatGPT or chatbot would have made. I was looking straight for the units that were available and pricing. I didn't enjoy when I had to call up the office, inquire whether or not they had units available, and then ask them what the pricing was, because it's a little awkward when you're like, sorry, can't afford that, and then you hang up. So I appreciated transparency just on websites in general, and I would trust an official website more than I would trust an AI when it comes to looking for housing.
What is one thing that would have taken your off-campus housing experience to the next level?
I think for me, who lives in like just off-campus houses, not an apartment complex, I don't know if anyone really does a lot with that, but I think like having amenities for that would be nice. Like there's a company that's kind of trying to break in to like our market, and he was trying to make like a clubhouse kind of thing, but for people who are living in these off-campus houses. And I thought that was really nice. Like it never really got done, but it was gonna have like a gym and like Pilates stuff and stuff like that. And I think like for living in these off-campus houses, like you kind of miss out on that. So I think that would be really nice, especially now, like you don't have to go to the school gym. Maybe your clubhouse has a little gym through your like realtor that you're already paying so much money to. So I think like for living in these houses, that would be a nice little extra touch.
I think maybe just fine-tuning the things that you're already advertising or you're already like saying. Like if you say that you really care about safety, maybe make sure that your front door is actually locks, or, maybe make sure that, the things that you advertise are up to par before we start doing, any crazy other fun things. Like I think just making sure that what you're advertising is accurate and like checking in with your property managers and your maintenance and making sure that like everything is as it already should be, that would have taken like my living experiences over the next level. Because then it's like, oh, like this didn't work out the way that I thought it was, or, this amenity isn't working the way that they told me it would. So I think just making sure that everything that you actually are advertising is true and is working, I think that would have taken my living experience definitely to the next level.
Yeah, I agree with that. Where I was living at, we had gates, like I mentioned. We had, I think, 3. And I lived by one of the gates, and it was always broken because it was always getting run into. So what? So it was like, and then obviously I'm in a house. We were in townhomes. I'm in townhomes with just women, like, so that was pretty scary because safety is a huge thing for around University City in general, I think. So that gate always being broken, my dad was getting pissed off about it. And these were things that like we were told like was gonna be safe, safety measures. And then I remember when that gate was broken, like one of my friend's cars got stolen too. It was just like that wasn't awesome. Yeah.
This might be a bit controversial, but towing, I think, just because I've worked there, I've had college students having to pay $300 to get their car back. I understand people must get consequences for not following the rules, but maybe working with companies that are for towing students instead of the same companies towing adults, with jobs. A lot of students cannot afford $300 to get their car back.
I feel like all of you guys have mentioned amenities as why you chose the apartments, but outside of the pool, how often did you actually use the amenities that you based your decision on?
Oh my gosh. My place had a tanning bed. I was in that bed, I hate to admit it, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. I was getting the coffee, because this is all free, right, in my brain. I was getting the coffee probably daily before I would go to class. And then we had study rooms too that I would use all the time. Our gym, I would use it all the time too. So I was probably in that clubhouse 5 days a week. So for me, it was definitely used because I'm like, it's free, right?
Yeah, definitely similarly, when I was living at the Hub in Columbia, I was using those amenities every single day. The 24-hour access gym was, like you mentioned earlier, perfect for a crazy student life schedule. So I used that every day. The study rooms were always packed. So when I could find a spot, used those every time I needed to do homework. I'm the type of person that I can't study where I live. It just doesn't work for me. So it was very convenient to have it a few floors up, to be able to have areas to study there. So yeah, every day I used those amenities for sure.
Yeah, I would say amenities became routine for me. I remember, especially in the summer, I would wake up, go to the gym, then go to our pool deck, lay out on the pool deck, do some studying out there. So amenities are super important. Like I said, they become routine for most college students, especially when we have that privacy as opposed to being on campus around so many other students.
For me, I probably use the amenities about 3 or 4 times a week. Like I said, it closes early, so I can't go too late. But whenever I'll go to the gym probably 3 or 4 times a week. But like I said, I use the sauna a good amount. And the study room sometimes, not really. I usually like to go to the library on campus for that.
Okay, so several of you guys mentioned renewal phone calls and renewal emails. My question is twofold. Did any of the operators do anything else to pique your interest or have a conversation with you about renewing besides email and phone calls? And then the second part of that is, if they didn't, or if they did, what did you like and what resonated more with you in making that decision?
I know I didn't mention it earlier, but I also was a receiver of the many phone calls, many emails when it came to renewing. And at that point, I had already known that I wasn't going to renew. So for me, it just became overkill, and I almost wanted to be like, hey, please stop calling me because I'm not going to renew. But that was rude, so I didn't. But I think if...
We've turned you into a Southern already.
Sorry, y'all. But if I had any additional points of contact outside of the calls and the emails, I probably would have been more annoyed, honestly, because at that point I had already made my decision. I had already lived there. I already knew whether or not I wanted to renew. So I don't know if any additional conversation or reach out was necessary because I had already had that living experience. That was the reason that I was choosing not to.
Yeah, I got to become so annoyed because once I did know that I wasn't living there again, and they were just pestering me. They did do some things that was on their Instagram, if you renewed, you'll be put into a raffle to win a gift card to Target or something. But I wasn't renewing, so I was like, dang, can't win that gift card. But for my friends that did renew, one of them actually did win the gift card, so hey. But it was kind of I wish I could have just told them to I'm not renewing, leave me alone kind of, because it just kind of made me more angry and more of a I made the right decision because you guys are annoying me. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I feel like that with the car insurance people all the time.
No, not in any of the emails that I received. I couldn't have been like, hey, I'm not renewing, like, leave me alone. It was just like, renew now before rates skyrocket or whatever.
Follow-up question to that. So it sounds like those were the only points of contact. There wasn't like reciprocity in making it more of a conversation. Looking back, knowing that there maybe could have been an opportunity for like an in-person or an event or something of that nature. Again, at the beginning, because I understand that it sounds like it's exhausting to receive a redundant phone call or email. But before you made that decision, there was probably some sort of consideration. What would you say to the room is the best way to engage you before you've decided? Whether it's event or in person, or what's the best way to engage you and your group to have a touch point?
We know with Lydia, it's free food, right?
I was just about to say like a food truck meetup would have been awesome. But like seriously, like if I felt that there was like more, because I feel like with these student livings, it's always like you're there for 1 year kind of, and then you're kind of out, or you're there for 3 years, you know? But it's a lot of turnaround. So I didn't really feel like a community because like I didn't know my neighbors. I only really knew the girls that I was living with. So maybe if it was more community-based, I would have been more inclined to re-sign. But since I didn't really have any like grounding reason to re-sign, it was just kind of like an annoyance. But yeah, like having more community type stuff where would get to know my neighbors, I feel like may have helped. But since I wasn't really offered that, I didn't sign.
If I had to like think about renewing now, which obviously I don't, like I would want to have like a personal conversation with someone and not like an automated text or email or call. I just think it's, for a lot of people, it's an important decision. It's like a lot of money and it's a whole year of living and lifestyle. Like I think for me, and of course it's really hard to get like a person in front of every single person you might want to have renewed. But I think like that personal touch, so even if it's like within a group, like something in the lobby or like something scheduled that's not like renew, but like a scheduled event or like a scheduled meeting with someone like, oh, let's just talk about renewing, like something a little bit more casual that's not like bombarding you. I think a personal touch is a great way to like actually get people to want to come back and renew with you.
I think we're at dessert time.
Yeah, we are. So thank you all very much. Thanks for joining us. Wes, thank you for moderating a great panel. We got about a 20-minute break until our next sessions. We have dessert and coffee outside for you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Again, just a big thanks to those 5 college students for taking the time out to come speak with everybody at LeaseCon, TurnCon. I will admit they got a little bit of a payment, another gift card to put in their pocket right before the Christmas holidays. And so really appreciate that they were willing to do that and take some time out right there on the tail end of their exams and everything else. You know, if you take away nothing else from this conversation, I think let it be this. Today's students are paying attention. They notice how early you're communicating. They notice how you show up on social media. They notice whether the amenities actually work, I guess is the best way of putting it. And they absolutely notice how they're treated once they move in. And bring it back to our sponsor of this episode, I think that's one reason Opinion's Social Pro is really so important, just because of it really helps the properties tell their story better and stay consistent and communicate in a way that actually resonates with the residents and prospects. And so, again, if you want to learn more about that, check out opinion.com/SHI. And again, that will be in the show notes. And if you want to keep learning and growing and staying ahead of student housing, make sure you visit not only our website, studenthousinginsight.com, but also sign up for Shop Talk at shoptalk.info to get access to our monthly webinars and to get those monthly invites for each webinar. Well, thanks for watching. And if you found this episode valuable, please be sure to like, subscribe, all of that. But more importantly, share it with someone in your organization or a colleague who needs to hear it. That's the kindest thing you can certainly do for us here at Student Housing Insight. Until the next episode, we'll see you then.